Hello everyone, I'm Adam from Critical Moves, and today I'm with Jack
Hi, Adam.
and Drexy. Hello.
Hey Adam, how's it going?
Thanks, everything is right. Today, guys, we'll talk about releases of the games that will happen this year. Guys, my first question is, how do you feel about this year in strategy gaming world?
Has it been a good year? I mean, there's been a lot of interesting titles. None of them have blown me away, I guess I could say, but they were solid. We've had Menace come out. Warhammer Mechanist 2 came out, but that's not been reviewed very well. DLC for Shadow Empire came out. I like that actually. Yeah, so it's been a mixed bag, really.
Shadow Empire is this type of game that I wish to play in my life, but I believe it won't happen.
It took me years to finally get into it, but once you do, then you get strangely hooked on it.
I mean, I think it's pretty exciting. I know last year around this time, I don't think we were really rooting for as much. I think the big things we talked about, I think last summer Tempest Rising came out, and so that was one of our big topics on the show. Maybe a few things came out in the fall, but nothing really stands out to me. And obviously, I mean, one of our biggest releases last year was actually Civilization, and that one was, you know how that one went. So there was way more conversations last year in Critical Moves about our strategy games dying, yada yada. I think this year's actually been pretty exciting. We're looking at a crazy September though.
I would like us to give one by one the title that we are looking for in this year. Game conferences that happened, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. The Stronghold 4 was announced, and I'm really excited about this game. I'm a huge fan of Stronghold franchise. Have you guys seen the trailer?
No, it's just one of those games I never really got into, which is quite a long-running franchise, right? Am I thinking of the right thing?
Every year or two, they release new installment, and then they re-release first and the expansion to the first, then they release new installment, and then they again re-release first one and the second one in another remake form. I don't know, we already had like 4 remakes of each of the first one at this point, because we have Stronghold 1, Stronghold 1 HD, Stronghold 1 HD Extreme, and right now we have Stronghold 1 Remaster.
And you're still excited for it?
Yeah, because you see, this is this kind of curse that you as a developer created awesome game, then you made an awesome expansion for this game, and since that point you tried many times and you've never hit the mark. You know what I mean? Like, it happens sometimes that you have this one game that sets you up for the future, and they try to reinvent the franchise. They implemented fantasy elements at some point. They went to more Asian style. But this time they decided simply to create something similar to the first game.
Kind of reminds me of what's happened with Heroes of Might and Magic, right? Because they did all a bunch of different experiments, and then this new one they've just come out has sort of gone back to the older games.
Yeah, but I would say the average review scores for Heroes of Might and Magic, like for each of the game, was at least 8. For Stronghold, it's like the first 2 were really good, and then there was like 6 out of 10.
Oh, right.
So they're trying to to grasp the concept of the first game. Maybe that will happen this time.
I played a bunch of Stronghold 2 when I was a kid. I didn't play any Stronghold 3 though. So I played a bunch as a kid for Stronghold 2, but like no Stronghold 3 from me. Stronghold 4, I haven't really heard too much about. What are some of the new features, Adam?
Stronghold 4 looks like Stronghold 1 with 3D graphics and some events as far as I looked. I looked through the trailer a couple of times, and I don't know, maybe little tweaks here and there, but in terms of mechanic, because as far as I remember, Stronghold 2 was a game of much lower scale. Am I right? It has because it didn't have like limit of 10,000 units. It was like 300 at maximum. Am I right?
Yeah, I remember it being a lot like Age of Empires, where you were pretty narrowed down to like the one castle area, and you only had so many handfuls of units basically at any time.
Yeah, you see, so that was, I guess, the biggest like negative about the game that the reviewers said is that the scale was much lower than in the original one. And hopefully from the gameplay, I looked at the Stronghold 3, it seems they brought back the huge scale battles. And it's really interesting that you've played Stronghold 2, to be honest. Like, it's considered one of the worst.
Funny enough, this game reminds me of another upcoming game that's coming out this year called Age of Respair. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one.
I've heard about it, but
I think it might be more of a. It says it's city builder, but there's definitely like catapults and whatnot outside the castle walls. It just kind of reminded me of that.
One thing about Stronghold is that they've never released any other game that's similar to this, that is serious, because like all other RTSs are about armies and fighting, and Stronghold, like how the game is about building your base, like you build your stronghold.
So could this game be like inspired by Stronghold?
For sure.
Possibly. Yeah.
For sure. As far as I can see, it even has this mines that are working, like they look the same way as in Stronghold games. So I guess this is like, I mean, not a knockoff, but I would say it's hugely inspired by Stronghold.
My number one probably is Star Wars Zero Company, which is basically a Star Wars version of XCOM, right? That type of game. A big fan of the XCOM games, and we always want a good Star Wars game, right? they come once in a blue moon, and this one actually looks really interesting. I don't think there's definitely not been any Star Wars games in the sort of tactical XCOM style vein, right? I can't think of any.
Yeah, really, you're right.
Yeah, so it's a new thing for the Star Wars franchise, right? And we've not had an XCOM for quite a long time now. So yeah, this is the one of the big ones I'm looking forward to this year. It's coming out 27th of August.
What I have to say though, that I guess in today's world we get a bunch of games that are similar to XCOM like every year. Like there was Hard West series, there was this Indiana Jones type of like set in this. I don't know, remember the name.
Oh, I know what you're thinking of. There was 3 of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it though, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so basically, we in every now and then we get a tactical strategy game, but yeah, you are right. We've never got one in Star Wars universe.
Now, Drexy, I'm known here at Critical Moves as like the Star Wars hater. I think Star Wars Zero Company looks pretty good, but what is it offering for someone who? Well, I mean, obviously it's like an XCOM game, so if somebody likes XCOM, that's kind of an easy sell. It's just another XCOM game, especially when we're lacking with XCOM, right? That's what Nuno was talking about. So, what does it have that's so interesting to like a Star Wars fan or just someone who's a tactics fan?
I mean, I'm not really a massive Star Wars fan, but there's a lot of lore, right? They can build off. A lot of these games, you know, I think they fell because there's no sort of interesting background. But with this, they've got a lot of stuff to play with in the whole Star Wars universe. You know, if you not just the films with the books and stuff of that, it looks like it's to do with like the Clone Wars as well. Something I never really got into, like the Clone Wars cartoon, right? But it looks like it's not just like going to be Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and that. It's very much a military type affair.
Yeah, it does look interesting. I can see here it's set at the twilight of the Clone Wars, so I feel like that's an interesting time period to set it. Lots of customization options, it looks like, even down to like modding the weapons, making them kind of like a modular, like change out the attachments. All of that appeals to me as a tactics fan, as somebody who liked, games like XCOM and stuff. So that's pretty cool. And people call me a Star Wars hater here. I'm just not crazy about Star Wars, but I would totally play this game. What gets me kind of interested, though, and maybe this is just a pattern with new games, according to Steam, the system requirements for this game are pretty crazy. It's asking like the recommended, not the minimum, but the recommended is 32 gigs of RAM. Yeah, so I think it's just maybe maybe a topic for another time on like the tech specs of like games these days or something. But yeah, it's asking for like quite a bit. for this game up front. And I don't know if it's because it's a tactics game. It looks pretty high fidelity, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's actually surprising, really, a type game like that would need such 32 gig. Just other things what I'm interested in, you have like stuff like the droids and that. Of course, you've got all the force stuff that comes into play, which you've not. Well, of course, you don't have that in other XCOM type games. So I think it's just a good setup. Like, even if you're not a big Star Wars player, it's going to be an interesting setting and some maybe interesting abilities in that's been different to what normal XCOM does.
Well, another thing that's surprising me about this game, and this is not me trying to hate on Zero Company at all. It's just one of the things that struck me looking at XCOM, wanting to like anytime you go to buy an XCOM game, if you're trying to get into the franchise, you notice that like XCOM 2, beloved game, it has a lot of DLC, especially for cosmetics, things that are far less important for like the actual gameplay moment to moment. And then there are of course DLCs, and while I'm sure Zero Company will have DLCs over time, and obviously they want to have something to sell the deluxe edition for because it's Electronic Arts, it's EA.
Yeah.
But Star Wars Zero Company is, I mean, like, yes, it has the pre-order bonuses, but it's also already lining up to have like available cosmetic DLC packs because just because it's tied to the deluxe edition doesn't necessarily mean it's exclusive to that edition. It just means when the game comes out, it's also going to release with cosmetic DLCs. And that just strikes me not as wrong, maybe like the other people might feel, oh no, it's an EA game that has these DLCs. I'm like, okay, I get that. It's just strange because it's already competing with XCOM in that space, but they're gonna have like the same DLC cycle probably. So you're really just getting like I'm not saying this game is a copy of XCOM. It's kind of funny, I guess, more than anything that like we're not getting an XCOM game, so we're finally getting one in the Star Wars game, and you're getting the same types of DLCs exactly out of it.
I mean, one thing I will say, they've got the pricing up already, and it seems actually pretty fair, quite surprising because, well, in pounds, it's 40 quid for the default one. The deluxe one is 50 quid. So I think normally a game of this time normally comes out maybe more like 60 quid. So I was surprised to see it at 39.99, 40 quid.
Yeah, no, that is a very fair price point.
Guys, what I'm afraid of is who is developing the game, because I checked and it is the no name, and so it's Reactor together with Respawn Entertainment. And as far as I know, they don't have any experience in strategy field. Like, they did Titanfall, they did Star Wars Fallen Order, and they're doing tactical game at this point. So I'm a little bit afraid of that, to be honest.
Yeah, that is strange, isn't it? Yeah, very different for them.
I would definitely be looking closer at Reactor though. If whatever their history of game development is, I'm gonna guess that Respawn was like an accessory studio on that project because Respawn has not been marketed as the primary dev. Even on Steam, it has Reactor listed as the developer. So I mean, you're right. Respawn doesn't have a lot of experience there. I think their like main all hands title for the most part is Apex Legends, which is a battle royale game. So, obviously they've done Titanfall, they've done like the Jedi Fallen Order games. Reactor seems to be the studio that's heading that, and they're probably using the art assets or the experience of like the Respawn art department from their work on the Fallen Order games. But it really just depends on the veterans or the developers they brought on for Reactor when they probably formed that studio for this game. I just don't know what their previous development experience is.
I'm looking at a website and they say collectively we developed some of the most successful games you've heard of: XCOM, Civilization, Gears of War, and Elder Scrolls Online. So at least they've got some XCOM devs in the studio. Jack, what are you looking forward to?
Okay. So this one, maybe you guys have heard of, maybe you haven't. I'm intrigued by this game more than anything, and I'm bringing it up first because it's probably going to be the soonest to release out of any of the ones on the video, or on this pod so far. So mine is, I think it's called Corsair Cove. It's technically a city builder pirate game, which we don't always get that often, especially one with an art style like this. And so obviously it's a city builder where you're having to manage logistics chains and things like that, and supply, you have to maintain like a supply and demand. But the logistics chains are things like what do pirates use at like a pirate cove? Zip lines for pirates. Also, your logistics chains are things like rope bridges and stuff, so you have to place them in the right places. You have to be able to like make a cool area for the pirate ships to come into. There's also like there's just clearly some comedy, some humor infused there. Like I see in one of the screenshots around the video, I think you see like a pirate dancing on a table with a pig. And so it's like, it's kind of charming, it's kind of fun. And also it just looks pretty good. And for a city builder, it's got a neat aesthetic. Like it's not often you get these vertical city builders, and I love when city builders are dynamic and let you do things with verticality. So the fact that they have this, the thing that interests me, or it kind of not, I guess the thing that worries me, and I do not want by any means for it to spread that I think that this is the case, but they have not mentioned anything about AI usage on the Steam page, and while I'm not overly picky or finicky about that, the game strikes me as something where, especially as a new developer, it has an art style that other games have had that could possibly be AI. That's not me saying that they use it at all, though. So I don't want it to go anywhere out of context that, like, I think this game has AI or that it does, and I don't want to send anything their way about that. It's just, I've noticed that a lot of games are choosing to post it once the game releases rather than when they start advertising it. So I'm waiting patiently to see that, but I hope the game does really well.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. It's very different from your average sort of city builder, right? Where everything's just in, rows and columns and blocks and everything's just square. This is like, like you're saying, all these like verticality and rope bridges going everywhere and buildings built on the cliff edges. And yeah, it looks it's making me wonder how it all fits together, sort of thing, because it's going to be more complex than your average city builder where you're just doing little blocks everywhere and making straight roads everywhere. Yeah, this looks pretty crazy, actually.
I don't know if I can say that, but I know the guy who was working on this game. I can say that this is created, I don't know if by the whole team or part of the team that developed Tropico series. Some of the graphics in this trailer were even made by my friend, so they're not for sure not AI generated. So that's I'm sure of it because he just showed me which he was working on, and he told me this is kind of the mixture of Tropico and Anno.
Right.
That's a really cool anecdote that you knew the person that worked on the trailer. And I was going to say, as a correction of myself, silly me, Jack, regular host of Critical Moves, this game is published by Hooded Horse. And so I am now thinking of it the same way I'm generally thinking of the other Hooded Horse titles that have not used AI to the capacity that some people have either blamed them for in the past or were speculated, like it was speculated for. So yeah, I didn't realize it was Hooded Horse on this. Not that, like perfect Hooded Horse or anything, but I have yet to see a game come from them that actually has a disclaimer like that that's like, oh, a significant portion of this is this or that. So that being said, and I could always be wrong in the future with their games, but yeah, first of all, cool anecdote that you knew somebody that worked on the game, and the fact that it came partly from a team from Tropico. I think the game looks really gorgeous. But obviously, it's one of those things where I don't want to be one of those people that looks at a good-looking game and worries that it's AI. I don't think that that's the case as far as like games, the way many people do. But yeah, this game looks gorgeous. And like I said, one of the main things for me is the verticality, and it looks so modular. I love it when city builders give you individual pieces that are smaller to build with, and the fact that you're like choosing where the zip lines go is so dynamic and cool, and the fact that like the bridges are built in that way is so dynamic and cool.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling about it. Like I said, it's just not this city. I kind of get bored of city builders because they're all grid based, and this is just way the furthest you could be from grid base. I mean, I'm sure we'll have some pictures up when the on the YouTube channel when this podcast is released. But yeah, there's like a waterfall, and then up the cliff face on each side, there's buildings and there's rope bridges just going absolutely everywhere. It looks absolutely crazy, and I'll be really interested to see how you actually place all these structures.
I know we are experts. We talk lots about strategic games, but I just saw that the demo for this game is released, so we could check it beforehand.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, this is the
Yeah.
first time I'm hearing of this, so
Yeah, there's a lot of egg on my face today about this game.
I just want to mention that Hooded Horse, please do not cancel us for my little gossip that I brought up.
no, I don't think it's fine.
Yeah, no, if anything, I feel bad for the artists because I never do that. I never say that about games. It's just, it gets presented in the same way that, like, if you don't pay attention, it looks like a game that these days is made by a much smaller team of like 5 people, and then you're like, how are they achieving this? And then there's like, oh, okay, there's kind of an answer. Not to say that
Well,
5%, I sound really stupid today, but like, as somebody who's also doing this kind of stuff. But anyways,
well, Hooded Horse has got enough money, I believe.
they are doing pretty good job. I hope they'll manage to release a great game. Also, we got the trailer for Company of Heroes Definitive Edition or Company of Heroes Anniversary Edition. It's called in a trailer. It's called Anniversary Edition. In the name of their YouTube video, it's called Definitive Edition. This game, the word confusing is what I would describe this game looks like, because Company of Heroes again is the game that was re-released like 3 times already at this point. It had even like this free-to-play multiplayer episode at some point. It was released on iPads, on Switch, on consoles. It had been released on PC. And I looked at the trailer of this anniversary edition. From the look of it, what they have done is they put simply new textures, higher res, and that's it. To be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed.
And how old is Company? It's quite old now. Isn't it the first one?
I played it in high school, so it should be old.
Yeah. So you would think. Then again, Dawn of War 1 sort of got, it wasn't a full remaster. It was sort of, sorry, it's not a remake. It was a remaster, right? But it's the same engine and whatnot. So I'm guessing it's the same company. I'm guessing they're just doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, but on the other hand, I looked at the Dawn of War remaster and it looked much better than the original one. When I looked at the trailer of Company of Heroes, even because the cinematics in the original one were kind of choppy, they had really low FPS. I don't know why. Maybe it was some issue with rendering them. And even the cinematics in the remaster were choppy. So I wonder, I don't know. I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't see the reason why they're releasing it. The first one still looks great, so I don't know.
Well, strange. Talking of AI, strange in this day and age. We've seen what other games have done with original trailers and, made them widescreen and improved the frame rate and all the rest of it. You'd expect this will be the same, right?
yeah, I remembered seeing this trailer during, I think, the PC gaming show, and I was kind of surprised because I expected a little bit better. But that is to say, I am a little bit impressed whenever it comes to certain things, like the widescreen version. Obviously, I think some of the textures look much better. The general effects, the contrast between the effects in the game look nicer. I was just kind of surprised, just because of how maybe quality some of these remasters are, and by no means do I feel like they need to take the time to remake them, but it is pretty interesting as well because maybe this isn't the all hands on deck project for Relic Entertainment, but right, I know one of the things we talked about last year was that Relic had worked on Dawn of War and they weren't doing Dawn of War 4. That's been passed over to the studio from, what was it, Iron Harvest. So them working on this and this being their only listed upcoming title, along with I think support studios as well, is pretty interesting. But yeah, this possibly could get me to play the first Company of Heroes game. It just might not be something I would play in 2026 or 2027. I would probably wait for it to go on sale, maybe.
Do you think, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Company of Heroes 3, which came out, 2-3 years ago, wasn't that well received? It was quite badly received, if I remember correctly. Do you think they've just done this to appease the fans, maybe?
On one side, yes, and on the other, no. So you see, when I look, because it was 20th anniversary of the game, so basically they're trying to appease to the audience by releasing and celebrating this anniversary by remastering the game. What my issue is that, again, let's bring up the Stronghold. Stronghold 1 got remaster, I don't know, a year ago or 2 years ago. Also, they simply improved the textures and stuff like that. But what they also have done is they implemented the whole new campaign. They added couple of not couple, but plenty of extra missions. They added couple of DLCs with new factions to the game. So the game still looks kind of old, but on the other hand, they added so much stuff to it that I believe this should be the way also for this Company of Heroes. They, like, as you said, they released Company of Heroes 3 a couple of weeks ago. Maybe they're producing probably updates for it. Probably they produce Company of Heroes 4. But in my opinion, they at least should be able to create new maps in the map editor. And at least at the trailer, they haven't showed that. There's no word like new maps. There's simply telling you, okay, there's 50 maps. And I believe in the original there were 50 maps. Maybe add 10 more maps. Maybe add short campaign in order to advertise the game. Like, do something more. I guess there are remasters that shown that it can be done.
I got a feeling that this was just, like you said, it's the 20-year thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they've put much effort in. I was just looking at Company Heroes 3, and about a month ago they had a patch come out, and the patch notes are absolutely massive, right? So they're obviously still focused on trying to get Company Heroes 3 into a good state. So maybe they just put this out as just like, oh well, it's been out 20 years. We'll just do not too much effort, sort of just touch up of the original. Maybe so just get it working on modern systems, etc. Not putting too much effort in it, whilst we still work on Company Heroes 3 and releasing DLCs, obviously.
Well, I think an important thing that I don't know why it slipped my mind before, but I mean, Relic, they came out with the Dawn of War Definitive Edition last year, which is something that I believe Al played and really enjoyed. And the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, like contextually, it makes me rethink this whole Company of Heroes Definitive Edition, because their Steam descriptions are the same, so they're being consistent across the content they provided for both. The Dawn of War Definitive Edition doesn't actually look that much better than the Company of Heroes remaster that we're getting. So it seems to be like contextually, I'm more accepting of the fact that if their standard is to take like Dawn of War and then Company of Heroes and give them the same remaster treatment that's very low effort for them, if you were to say that, or just they're going to like give them consistent treatment as a remaster, that's one thing. If they had made Dawn of War look like really, really good and then put like a bunch of effort into like completely redoing the cutscenes or something by hand, I might feel a particular way if the Company of Heroes remaster didn't look that good. But if it's just their standard to only do this for their definitive editions and include all the DLCs, 64-bit system support, things like that, that makes sense to me. And so I think that I wouldn't be upset with Company of Heroes if I was a fan of the original, the same way Al was very ecstatic about the Dawn of War remaster.
I would agree with you, but unfortunately, the difference is that the Dawn of War was in much worse state, like the original one, that it even struggles to be played on modern PCs. And at this point, and the UI was really bad and stuff like that. Company of Heroes was a little bit older game, and they've already made it in such a way it played really nice on a PC. Again, at some point it was even released as a free-to-play game. It was released on Nintendo Switch, on consoles, so it plays really good at this point. It didn't necessarily needed to have remaster. I guess fans will appreciate it, but they can always say, okay, this is on par with Dawn of War 1, and that's cool. But I know, I believe that I expected more from them. The next game, Drexy.
I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here and actually mention two games because they're funny enough, they're very similar. One's been in the development, I think, a lot longer, but they're still both claiming to be coming out this year. Fragile Existence by Hooded Horse is the first one, and Beyond Astra is the second one. Now, why I'm sort of putting these two together, and it'll be interesting to see how similar or how different they are, is because both these games, they're like space 4X games, right? With their RTS as well. But the interesting thing is you can fly from space onto the planet and battle from the planet. So there's no sort of barrier between the planet and the whole universe or galaxy or whatever. So they both do this thing, right, where you can just fly a ship all the way from space onto the planet. It's just strange. These two games are supposedly coming out some point this year, and they're doing a very similar thing.
From the look of the screenshots, they seem similar to Dyson Sphere program.
Yeah, but that's more you're just building, you're like a single guy running around building stuff. This is an actual war game, right? It's basically like a real-time RTS 4X game, I guess. You could use all those descriptives to them. So if you look at the trailers, you'll see like ships flying down and dropping off ground units and stuff like that, and they both do the same thing. So you've got war going up in space, and it can come all the way down to the planet. I guess whichever one comes out first, or whichever does it the best, is going to be the winner here.
Probably Hooded Horse as a publisher has their own scouting team. So I wonder if there was like a guy came out like, okay, we have these two games. They're looks really similar. Let's choose one of them. And basically they were like competing at each other or something like that. I wonder what was the story at this point.
Well, the other one isn't. Sorry, Beyond Astra isn't released by Hooded Horse. Sorry, only Fragile Existence is.
So they chose this one.
So yeah. But Fragile Existence, I've known about it since about 2021. I think I interviewed the guy on another podcast, along with Falling Frontier is another a Hooded Horse game that's been long awaited and gets delayed every year. So it'd be interesting to see if this one actually comes out this year.
Yeah, I'm actually particularly interested in Beyond Astra. I really like the aesthetics of that one, and it kind of, I think, because of the way the city building looks, like seamless planet traversal between the two games, whatever. To me, I think the grand strategy mixed with city building elements of Beyond Astra speak to me a little bit more. I think like the units and the general like prose and aesthetic for that game speaks to me a little bit more. So that's probably the winner in my books if I just had to choose one. That said, I think both of them are doing something maybe not entirely unique, but still like largely original enough that they have room for it. It is interesting. It's an interesting situation that they're competing in this regard. It's interesting that Hooded Horse is involved as a publisher and the other one is being self-published. And I think obviously we'll see based on the reviews when it comes down to the player experience what's actually going to happen there. Because who knows, maybe the entire story flips and the players prefer the one that maybe they prefer not Beyond Astra, right? So
I will say one thing. I'm not sure about Beyond Astra, but I know for a fact that Fragile Existence is a solo dev. That's why it's sort of been taking quite a while, right? But he has got the backing. He's got the Hooded Horse money, whilst the others are publishing the game themselves. So it'll be it'd definitely be interesting to see who does it better, right? Because they are very similar things. And like I've been saying, 4X games have been getting a pretty stale. And I think these two games are trying to do something that's not been seen in a 4X game before.
It's interesting that both of them are trying to do these dynamic space battles as well. I'd be interested I would need to look into them both more deeply to see if that's something that actually turns the tide for me between the two of them. Because at least like Beyond Astra being the one that I'm slightly more familiar with, that one looks like it has these like dynamic 3D space battles where like the ships are actually moving up or down and like using the space. So I would be interested to see how that's implemented.
Well, Fragile Existence is the same, right? They're both, it's not because the transition from going to the planet to space is there's no transition. It's all just one thing. Everything exists on the one map in both games. So I think the combat will be also very similar as well. So yeah, that's why I'm like wondering who's going to have the better implementation. By the looks of it, maybe Beyond Astra. Obviously, I think Beyond Astra must have. It's not a solo dev. The graphics look better, right? from what I can see.
Yeah, it does have that going for it as like a general, like it looks like it has a little bit more production value, which isn't fair, but it looks like it has a little bit more production value visually when it comes to the aesthetics and like the VFX and everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing, because we brought up plenty of games across the pod that, you know, were not winners when it came graphically, or like the UI was super clunky, but the intention from the developers and like the actual game design was winning out.
Okay, guys. So for me, I've just learned that this game exists, and both them looks to me like I don't know. Have you played Spore?
Yeah.
And the Galactic Phase looks exactly like these two games.
I do see that.
Anyway, to be honest, I'm also looking forward to them. Like they look really nice, both of them. Kind of similar, but not in like Beyond Astra seems of a smaller scope, and Fragile Existence seems like of a bigger scope. And on the other hand, like I don't know, maybe it's too much. So I would vote for Beyond Astra.
Yeah, Beyond Astra's planets look smaller and Fragile Existence looks bigger, but is Fragile Existence going to use up all that space on the planet, or are the battles just going to be on a smaller part of the planet, and then why have such a big planet, sort of thing? So
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't see me coping with this huge planet, with 10 of huge planets and managing them at the same time. So I don't know. But if this is the passion project of the single person, we know that it happens that these games become really good at some point. So maybe this is the one.
I'm reading it during the pod, and I think the premise of Fragile Existence is kind of interesting because, you know, Beyond Astra is just about, it seems to be about colonization, and there's like diplomacy and alliances and things like that. And while that's probably the case for Fragile Existence, it seems the premise is kind of like AI war. It's called Fragile Existence because you're not supposed to be using up the whole planets, probably. It's kind of like a run to a planet, start a colony, get the resources you can, and then maybe not just ditch that planet, but you're trying to spread as quickly as possible because it seems like there is an overwhelming threat that's either hunting you or present. So the idea is that it's leaning into that feeling that I like from like early Civ, or like really just early 4X, where the goal is to expand and conquer as much as possible so that you are setting yourself up for the best defense.
Yeah, it may be like a huge auto battler. Like, you understand my hot take. Due to the AI, you are not controlling everything, and as you mentioned, you just deal with one stuff here, one stuff there, and see what will happen. Yes.
I believe you control the units. Like I said, I interviewed the dev, but this was back in 2021, so my memory is a bit foggy of what was covered back then. But like I said, this game has been on my end of year wish list for the past 5 years.
Oh my god!
Please come out! Please come out this year.
You know, when the games are produced by solo devs, I believe they are not medium in terms of quality. Either they are really good, or they are flopping hard. Like, if there's a passion project by a solo dev, either this person is crazy about the game, or they just release it at some point and it's really lackluster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think Hooded Horse of Tim's really good at finding these games, right? And giving them the support they need to make their sort of dream game come true. So
Yeah, exactly. So this may be this one of game, like, you know, Stardew Valley type of game and so on. So this is the one dev who is just really passionate, and he makes a great product. Let's get back to Jack on the next game.
Okay, so this is a game I was first alerted to this summer from one of the showcases. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was Summer Games Fest it was there. Maybe it was the PC Gaming Show. It's called Chronicles Medieval, and it is suggested to be coming out this year, 2026. I don't think that there's a confirmed release date, and it will be releasing into early access, so it won't be 1.0 when it comes out this year. I'm looking at this as someone who really enjoys Mount & Blade. You know, Mount & Blade kind of gets away with these prolonged development cycles with tons of issues in the game that the community is always talking about. And so while I do really love Mountain Blade, especially like Mountain Blade 2, I put a bunch of hours into that in like the past 2 years. This is basically another Mountain Blade, except it's not set in the original fantasy world of Mountain Blade. It's set in real medieval Europe. The battles look even more dynamic because they have so much more tech into the animations and the actual like per unit conflict in the battle. Still has the actual battles that you're getting involved in yourself, like you're doing cavalry charges, you're able to use these weapons. But like there's all kinds of dynamic animations. You're watching like soldiers get beheaded on the battlefield, which was just something that wasn't really there even in Mountain Blade 2, the most recent entry. You were like you see the blood splatter and you see the enemies collapse and you like watch them drop in the distance from the arrows, and all of that is cool, but you're not necessarily seeing like these guys. It's like you're watching an army playing Chivalry 2. Like these guys are like throwing things at each other, or they're like stabbing each other with these pikes while they're crawling on the ground, and that stuff looks really like really well done and dynamic. Also, like graphically, I don't want to say that one is just necessarily that much better than the other. Obviously, one is like coming out later than Mountain Blade 2, but Chronicles Medieval looks a little bit more impressive graphically, so yeah, there's just a bunch about it that looks really good. What about you guys? Have you guys heard about it? Seen anything interested in Mountain Blade or games like that?
Is this the game I'm thinking of? Because there was a game that was supposed to be coming out that was supposed to be like Mountain Blade, but it had Total War elements to it. Is this the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know enough about Chronicles Medieval from everything they showed at this summer or like on their Steam page to suggest that it has Total War mechanics. But I'm also trying to think of what mechanics that would be besides like the differences in the world maps that Mountain Blade wouldn't necessarily have for its unit types and stuff.
See, because I never really played I never played Mountain Blade, so. But I know this one sort of has a strategic map. Did Mountain Blade have such a map as well?
Yeah, so the map is one of the things that strikes me as like pretty similar. Mountain Blade has like a pretty expansive overworld of multiple like either provinces or what you would call, I guess, like their countries in their fantasy world. And so, I mean, for them, it's all humans. It's very realistic fantasy in that sense, and you're able to see every individual like keep on the map, every town or city, I should suggest, and then villages. And then there really isn't that much variety across like those things. There's also bandit camps, so it looks a lot like the map that you'll see in the screenshot on Chronicles Medieval, where they have very similar like titles, like floating titles above those locations, and you click on them, and then your horse travels on the map, and then it costs you basically supplies in your party every time, like on a tick of the clock that passes every day, and you're actually watching the day-night cycle happen as you travel. So that stuff all looks very similar.
You see, I guess this is the same case as the game that Drexy mentioned. So, what Age of Respair was for Stronghold, this Chronicles game is the same for Mountain Blade. And what I mean is, to be honest, didn't have any competitors in the field what they were doing. So there wasn't a single. I don't know. I cannot remember if there was a single game similar to Mountain Blade. They were the only company doing this games in this genre. So I do believe that this is at least one of the first tries to maybe do something similar but better. And Mountain Blade, as far as I played, and I played first one. So as far as I remember, this game has maybe not lots, but has some issues. I'm really glad that someone tries to maybe make something different or better in this genre.
Yeah, at least it's not another game with cards in it, right? Because I'm sick of seeing games with cards in them. Or another Vampire Survivor clone.
We can have plenty more of those, Drexy. Come on. Yeah, I'm really happy that somebody's competing in this space because I don't want to. I think it's Wartail, right? Or Wartails. Are they the ones that make Mountain Blade? Maybe I have that wrong. Somebody will let me know. I'm glad that they have somebody competing in that space now because I actually think that Mountain Blade is like maybe not. It's not a novel idea, but it has really good grounds for this gameplay loop that people are obviously still passionate about with Mountain Blade 2. I mean, there's still so many people playing the original Mountain Blade and Fire and Sword. And so to me, they're great games. The problem that we brought up was that, or I was bringing up, I guess, was that the developers have this prolonged development cycle, not between titles, even though that's true. But when they release one like Mountain Blade 2, it's sat there with some significant issues throughout the game, especially on PC, that have just gone unaddressed in updates for the game, and also it stops receiving content when they could be supporting these games. And so you're kind of wondering where all of that development cycle time is going and where all that energy is going and whose salaries are they paying to work on these games. And that's not me sending hate or anything because, props to them. They just came out with a very innovative expansion for Mount and Blade 2 that was not there previously for the franchise. Something that I don't even think Chronicles Medieval either had the development time or the anticipation to try to combat as a competition piece, which I'm not saying that they are a competition piece, but Mount and Blade 2 added in naval combat, which was not something that existed previously for Mount and Blade. It added in like naval-based combat between ships. It added in the ability to like embark on land, I think. It also added in it when you purchase the DLC and load it, it changes the map slightly. So there are locations on the water. There are now more cities or villages by the water, so you can either do coastal raids or like coastal sieges. That stuff is super cool. And it also keeps in mind provisions and probably does completely different calculations for that. As someone who hasn't played the DLC yet, I can't say everything about it, but I just know that as a premise, it's something that Chronicles Medieval I don't think is doing themselves. So I'm glad that they're trying to innovate, even though it's not addressing every issue the Mount and Blade is having. But I'm really glad that Chronicles Medieval is like entering the space and that it's supposed to be coming out this year. That's pretty cool.
Okay, with that said, then, do you think this is gonna be successful? The question I'm actually asking is, what is it doing different to Mount and Blade for people to actually buy this rather than sticking to Mount and Blade?
Well, the thing about Mount and Blade, right, is that I was saying before, maybe it's not a novel idea, but like its core gameplay premise is not necessarily adapted in other games, like we were saying for competition. Like it fulfills a role for people who like those types of games that you're not going to find somewhere else. So we feel like we're kind of settling for it. That's not to say that it's a bad game, though. What you're seeing with Chronicles Medieval, though, is that it's like you're watching this really attractive alternative appear that you didn't realize was possible in that space. Because what Chronicles Medieval clearly has over Mount and Blade, like I guess the best way to describe it is Mount and Blade fills that role, but it's lacking in details. But you settle for that because it is Mount and Blade. It is what exists in that space. But when a game like Chronicles Medieval comes out and it clearly has more details on the way the horse is moving, like there's more details and like technology into the combat because the combat looks so much more dynamic. They're like I said, they're like doing beheadings. That stuff does not happen in Mount and Blade. It's very arcadey in the sense of you're like watching a soldier hack the other one multiple times in the same direction with the same movement, and then the other soldier will eventually collapse and die, and then that's how it gets counted. So the fact that Chronicles Medieval has these like really dynamic, like shield and sword or pike battles, like yes, Mount and Blade has all those different weapon types, but this game has it has so much going for it for the combat compared to Mount and Blade. I'm not sure how the tactics necessarily are working differently. I can't say how maybe the city interactions go differently because Mount and Blade 2 did a bunch of cool stuff there. But this game may very well have a more detailed and vibrant, like lively world. And also, Mount and Blade, you're subscribing to this fantasy world, and I'm all for original fantasy worlds and ideas. But if you're a history person and that's one of the things you liked about something like Total War or Crusader Kings, having a Mount and Blade that you don't have to download a mod for that has all this detail and research and time invested into it for it to be an accurate representation of that period of like medieval Europe, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, so what I'm reading here it's set in the 100-year war. So it's, yeah, like you're saying, it's definitely much more historical. One thing I could say is the graphics look absolutely amazing. It's like, wow. Like, yeah, it looks way better than Man and Blade. It's crazy that this studio, well, I don't know who's behind it, but under this name, they've not put any games out as far as I can tell. This is their first game. I'd love to know what the people who are working on this game have worked on before, because damn, it's absolutely amazing looking game.
I just want to mention that it looks to me kind of Unreal Engine 5 type of graphics. Yeah, I could say I played lots of games, and at this point, I guess I could see it being Unreal Engine 5 default style game. But anyway, still, if this is the case, it will look 10,000 times better than Mountain Blade, because as far as I remember, Mountain Blade unfortunately looks like a game 10-year-old, and even when it was released, it looks already 10-year-old. But Jack, I have one question for you. Have you played Manor Lords? Manor Lords?
No, the game is. I have access to the game. I basically have the game in my library. I cannot wait to play it, but I've just been kind of patient to like not go to it yet because there's so many other things on the docket.
Do you have any more worth mentioning?
Yeah, I won't go too deep into the games because we stretch for time here. But another sort of historical medieval game is a game called Carthage, Bellum Punicum, which is much more on the Total War style thing, but it's not exactly the same. It's quite a large scale compared to that, and you've got a lot of in the overview map. It's sort of more real time. Your armies are marching down the roads, and you have to rely a lot on scouts. And at first looks, it looks like a hex and counter game almost. It has these hexes, the counters you get in war games. But as you zoom in, you actually see the actual armies who are fighting like Total War style. So that's one game I'm looking forward to. I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about it, or shall I go on?
It looks like Battle for Edinburgh. There was a game like that. Anyway, okay, maybe I don't know. I have brain fart. Let's go with the next game.
Well, similar vein, another. Well, it's not medieval; it's a bit later. But Grand Tactician's Napoleonic Wars. It's just supposed to be coming out this year, made by the guys who did the Grand Tactician's Civil War games, which I liked. So I'm looking forward to that. And the last one is Total Victory, World in Conflict, 1939 to 1945. Damn, I'm starting to sound like a history buff here because all these games are historical. But these are the guys, the devs behind the Warplan games. This is probably the most niche out of the bunch because it's definitely like a hex and counter type war game.
Okay, I was right. So this Carthage game, I just googled it. Looks like Ultimate General Gettysburg. I played it. I don't know, 10 years ago, and it was really fun. Really fun game.
Which is actually quite similar to the Grand Tactician games as well. That one, yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. This is this niche that I don't have much to tell. These are the games again that I wish to play sometime later in my life, but unfortunately, probably it won't happen.
Yeah, once you get old as me, you start playing games like this, right?
Hopefully, you know, I would say I have these phases that I get into some genre and play game after game, so maybe it will happen. But for sure, I will play Shadow Empire. Like, this is the game I'm looking forward to playing at some point. But anyway, Jack, do you have any remarks?
I mean, I'm all for more historical games, especially in the... I mean, I can say strategy space because that's cheap, but I think that it's just pretty cool. Like, it's cool that we're getting, like he was saying, the Napoleonic War game. That's awesome. I like games that are hyper-focused on a particular part of history, especially if it's exploring a particular side or something. That always interests me. So I'm like tentatively looking out for both of those.
Right. I mean, even outside of the game, you can do a bunch of research. There's lots of great YouTube videos that cover this period. The way I got into this is through the Field of Glory games, right? So I was getting into like the history. This was, what period do you call it? Like the Persian sort of period. That sort of period the first Field of Glory was based around. I was like watching a lot of videos on YouTube around that sort of area, and I got into the Field of Glory games. So yeah, it's the kind of thing that if you're interested in a certain era, you'll definitely be interested in these kind of games. And if you're not, it could give you a chance to learn about them.
For now, for me, this type of games are too niche in terms of gameplay, how robust the gameplay is. So maybe at this point I would like to play something more streamlined. Anyway, this Carthage looks really nice. Guys, I guess time's up. Hopefully during this episode, any one of you learned about the game that you are looking forward to now, and probably add it to the wishlist. Guys, thank you for the episode. It was really fun talking to you. Thank you, Drexy.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, no problem.
So guys, please subscribe to the channel, listen to the podcast, leave a comment down below if there's a game we didn't mention, and I look forward to the next episode. So thank you and have a good day. Bye.